Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining the East Coast Wildfires webinar. We have a lot of great things to share with you today, and I'm going to get started with introducing myself. My name is Liz Simpson. I've spent the majority of my career helping agencies of all different sizes and types across the SLED sector acquire different software solutions to help meet their needs. I also have two others joining me today, Ken and John, and I'll hand it over to Ken.
Thanks, Liz. Good morning, everybody. My name is Ken Kemna. I am a senior policy advisor for the Western Fire Chiefs Association. Before I failed at retirement, I was a fire chief in Santa Clara County and spent the last, 40 years in the fire service. John?
Thank you, Ken. John Aberzacy, Director of Government Sales here at Genesis. I've been in the protective communication space for a little over 10 years now. IT background, and the really nice thing is I've had the privilege of working with agencies of all sizes from 75 population up to multiple state agencies. So I've had some experience in many different system setups and helping them get information to their citizens and create more efficiencies.
Great. Thanks, guys. For our agenda today, we are going to discuss the rise of wildfires across the East Coast, the unique challenges that we face on the East Coast, the importance of zone-based planning, and last, we're going to talk about Genesis and a few of our platforms that will really help with these areas. So first, to jump in, what I'm going to do is really share about the risks that we're seeing growing year after year. In the 1960s, we were averaging about 2 heat waves per year. And in the 2020s, we're seeing about 6 per year, which is a big increase. Also, the heat wave season is lasting on average 6 days per year longer than we saw in the 1960s, and temperatures are higher. This is causing more frequent and long-lasting and intense fires when they happen on our coast. And I'm going to have Ken elaborate a little bit on that.
Yeah, thanks, Liz. Well, specifically speaking about the West Coast, one of the things that I was doing when I was still working in the fire service was I was heavily involved with FireScope, which many of our listeners will already recognize. And we started having a conversation decades ago about what we were seeing on the ground, whether it was climate change, persistent drought, bark beetle for a period of time, an invasive pest, a number of things that we saw continuing to contribute to the significance and the spread of wildfire. We were seeing energy release components that were higher than ever before. Fires were growing in intensity much more quickly and size and everything. This is something we've seen for quite some time, so it really isn't a surprise that we're starting to see this in other places in the country and to our north in Canada, certainly.
And here what you're seeing is a U.S. Department of Agriculture heat map. And while wildfires are typically more prevalent on the West Coast, we are getting more and more fires that are happening on the East Coast. As you can see from the heat map, you see some in the Florida region and even up into the Northeast. These East Coast areas are heavily populated, and when seeing the rising statistical trends that we just saw on the last slide, it really raises concerns for the future. And just in these last 3 months, we can see some examples of wildfires hitting very close to populated areas, and we'll dig into that a little bit more on the next slide. Next slide, please. So here are a few East Coast wildfires that we want to hone in on. The Jennings Creek wildfire, this spanned across the New York-New Jersey border and affected areas in Passaic County, New Jersey, and Orange County, New York. It began in early November 2024, and it burned approximately 5,000 acres. Over 150 households had to be evacuated, and one volunteer unfortunately lost their life. The next fire was the Prospect Park fire. This occurred in Prospect Park, Brooklyn, in New York. It happened in early November 2024, and it was small, but it was really close to those urban areas, which posed threats. And then the Evesham Township fire in Burlington County, New Jersey, was also reported in early November 2024, and it burned approximately 360 acres. Next slide, please. So this really does pose a problem for the East Coast. Really, the biggest concern is the urban proximity. There's a lot more houses built on this, what was once farmland, and a lot more neighborhoods popping up. So it's really heavily populated, and it causes a lot of complex evacuations. There's also a lot of dense vegetation, as Ken mentioned. These fires can be slower burning, but they're extremely hard to extinguish, which poses a threat to many communities. And the infrastructure, we're really lacking the adequate preparation for wildfires, really just due to the inexperience and fewer outbreaks on our coast. Communities lack that preparedness and what to do, and really are not perceiving it as a relevant threat. Ken, did you want to speak more to this?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I want to share, and I'll probably say it again, the focus here is wildfire, and I absolutely it is the topic that is relevant certainly in this moment as we're still actively fighting wildfires here in the state of California. But it's important to recognize that the kinds of things that we're talking about apply to any hazard. We could be talking about atmospheric river, we could be talking about flooding, tsunami, hurricane, any number of hazards. So I really want everybody to kind of think that through. We're not just talking about wildfire, though wildfire is certainly continuing to grow in intensity and size, and we're seeing more evacuations and unfortunately loss of life and structures. That is certainly true, but I just want to keep everybody sort of focused on the fact that we really are, wildfire is the hazard we're focusing on today, but think broadly about all hazard as well at the same time. It's important, I think, to sort of recognize. Now, I spent a career in public safety, and one of the things that we were focused on, really for my entire career, and certainly as my time as fire chief, one of the things we did was we worked on trying to do everything we could to be as effective and efficient as we possibly could to reduce our response times. It is a focus of first responders, whether you're law enforcement or fire, to do everything you can to arrive at the scene as quickly as you can, as prepared as you possibly can, to make decisions quickly, to mitigate the hazard, to prevent the loss of life and structures. So today, I think the focus on accelerating wildfire response is a good one, because there are things that we can do where we can increase our effectiveness and increase the speed with which we make decisions and our ability to respond to wildfire. Next slide. So I came to know about zone-based evacuation management, obviously, as a first responder and a public safety leader in a community. It is recommended by FEMA as the most efficient and effective way to evacuate, certainly. But I want to focus today on not just zones, but intelligent zones. And what I mean by that is intelligent zones, they're not just geographical areas identified on a map. Intelligent zones facilitate and accelerate decision making. It gives you the resources and the information you need to make decisions at the time you need to make those decisions. That's a critical feature. They also give you the ability to collaborate. As a public safety professional, one of the things I am used to and spent much of my career doing was collaborating with not only neighboring agencies, but neighboring agencies throughout the state of California and sometimes beyond. Our ability to share resources with one another and work with other agencies, whether law enforcement or emergency management or emergency medical services, it goes on and on. So our ability to collaborate is really critical. And when we talk about collaboration, we need to include the community in this as well, because what we're talking about is trying to share information with one another so we can respond more effectively and efficiently, but also that includes sharing information with the public. Next slide, please. So what are zones? I don't think there's any mystery here. I mean, zones are basically identified geographical areas that we've just sort of constrained for the purposes of getting our heads wrapped around a given area. It's a specific geographic area, and we could, like I said, we could simply draw a line on a map and create zones. But there's so much more to creating intelligent zones, and zones that are usable for us to effect efficient and rapid evacuations. Intelligent zones are created utilizing GIS data, and there's myriad sources of GIS data that we can leverage to do this. So we have access to the information to create zones that give us exactly the information we need, including historical data. Many of us come from areas where we have a known wildfire problem. We've been on these fires before. We understand how they're going to burn under certain conditions and where they're most likely to go. So we understand the impact that they could have to our community. We take that into account when creating zones so that the zones are intelligent and match what we know. Critical facilities. Here it isolates hospitals, schools, utilities. Think about correctional facilities. These critical facilities are important specifically from an evacuation perspective because the people who are in hospitals and schools and correctional facilities, they don't have mobility. So evacuating them and caring for them or managing them in some way is critical, and it impacts our ability to evacuate the community. Also, hyperlocal information. When we talk about intelligent zones, the way to make the zones truly intelligent, we take advantage of the technology, we take advantage of the algorithm and the GIS and historical data and all the information that's available, and then we ground truth it. We ground truth it with the first responders on the scene. And having gone through this, I can tell you it takes what is a much, much, much better product and takes it to another level, because now you're taking into account first responders' active knowledge of the area, how they're mostly effectively going to respond, where the resources are coming from, and all of that. So ground truthing it with first responders who have knowledge of the area takes them to another level. Next slide, please. All right, so now comes to decision making. So the key to making decisions is not just to make them fast. It's to make the right decision and as quickly as you possibly can. So it's a combination of multiple things. When we're talking about utilizing intelligent zones that help you make fast, accurate decisions, it's critical that we have several things. One, the zone boundaries. The zone boundaries constrain the area, as I said before, utilizing technology and local knowledge to make sure that our zones are correct and accurate and meet our needs. We also bring in custom GIS layers. These can be any number of things, whether you have prior burn scars from previous wildfire, or you have dam inundation layers or tsunami layers, you name it. If you're in the Pacific Northwest up in Washington and you're in the Mount Rainier shadow, you are interested in lahar, a completely different type of hazard. Those kinds of GIS layers, when necessary, inform your decision making in a way that makes sure that you're making rapid and accurate decisions about the population that's under threat. Population and vehicle density, day or night, for any of these zones, when we're making a decision about trying to get people out of harm's way, having some level of understanding of how many people we're impacting specifically during the daytime or the nighttime is critical. It would certainly be easy just to pull up to a scene and recognize you need to effect evacuations and alert everybody to get out of harm's way. But knowing how many people you're impacting is absolutely critical, because it helps you to understand what the impact is going to be on your roadways, to your evacuation centers, and are you going to be able to get all of those people out of the area in time. Again, critical infrastructure locations. If you have multiple facilities like we talked about earlier in any given zone, it is a consideration for you when evacuating that zone that you're going to have people who need special assistance being evacuated. You're going to need additional resources, whether it's ambulances or something else, to get them out of there, and it's going to take longer. Providing information about shelters and critical evacuation facilities for first responders is not only essential because you know where you're sending people, you're giving information to the community about where they should go, you know which centers are going to need to be staffed. The last thing you want to do is send people to a facility without anybody there to answer questions or provide information and give them the support that they need. We talked about traffic conditions and road closures. Having information about the roadways and what the impact of trying to get folks out of a given area is also very critical. As the disaster or fire or whatever it is we're dealing with continues to move, having the information available to you about the growing hazard and areas that have either been evacuated or are considering for evacuation is critical. And to have that information in real time as it's evolving helps first responders make decisions when it's most necessary. Next slide, please. So I'm a big proponent of collaboration, specifically because I have a lifetime of experience working with my regional partners, both in the area that I worked in specifically and throughout the state and the western states. The sharing of resources is absolutely critical. As we see right now in Southern California, the resources amassed to fight the fires in Los Angeles come from all over the state of California and well beyond. Resources came from Washington and Oregon and a number of states. The ability for those resources to collaborate and have access to the information via common operating picture ensures that they show up ready for what they're going to deal with. They have some level of understanding of the kinds of evacuations that have taken place. They're watching this happen in real time, and they can ingest that information and be better prepared to react. Sharing information simultaneously in real time with our law enforcement partners, our emergency management partners, ensures that we're all playing from the same sheet of music. We're all on the same page in real time. It reduces confusion. It ensures that we're working with the most up-to-date information, so we're not working with stale data or stale information from a prior operational period or from even 20 minutes ago. It also connects leadership to the ground personnel and helps unify the response areas. On a large growing incident, specifically one that is dynamic, confusion is a possibility. So ensuring that leadership is able to communicate effectively with personnel to unify the response is not only critical, but it's a matter of safety. Next slide, please. Probably the single biggest advantage I see to technology beyond the collaboration piece is our ability to communicate efficiently, effectively, and quickly with the public. We're long past the days when an incident commander could absorb all of the information, digest all the information, prepare a public message, and then push that message out as the first source of information about any evolving emergency. With technology and social media and hyper local social networking, like some of the things that we see in our neighborhoods, our community's ability to connect with one another is better than it has ever been. So our ability as first responders and emergency managers to connect to the public to ensure that they're getting information from us as first responders, as the incident commander, the accurate information, rather than getting potentially second, third, or fourth-hand information from a neighbor who might have heard it and heard something on the radio and somebody told them. They're getting accurate information from us. Leveraging platforms like this creates a single point of trust that the community, once they know about it, can come to that source and get information. It is important that we recognize that their access to information isn't the problem. Access to accurate and verified and valid information, that is the critical piece. Tools like this need to be simple to use, and I can tell you from firsthand experience, applications like we're talking about today they are simple, they are intuitive, they are easy to understand. A community facing wildfire presented with a tool that has point and click functionality both on the user side and the community side is a game changer, specifically when we're looking at evacuating a large community and we need to sequence evacuations or sequence repopulation. Being able to communicate in real time graphically in a way that the community can understand reduces the impact on your community and the stress on your community, because you're getting information in real time that they trust, reduces the impact on your communication center from answering myriad calls from the public about what's going on, who's being evacuated, and all of that. So it significantly improves community awareness with a public-facing map. We sort of move way beyond the days when the community or the public had to wait for information. We have the ability now to start that conversation, frankly, before the emergency. Before anything even happens, we have the ability to communicate with the public and make sure that they know that we are that source of information. These kinds of emergencies are dynamic. They grow exponentially. When we see the kinds of things that we've seen in Hawaii, in Northern California, and in Southern California, these wind-driven wildfires that we see, it's no different than we see whether it's a hurricane or a tsunami or something coming up the eastern seaboard. These are dynamic emergencies. They change quickly, and our ability to make changes when necessary through dynamic zone adjustments, either making them larger or smaller, or splitting them, so that we can be more surgical in our application of either shelter in place or evacuating people, significantly changes how we protect the community, their ability to get information, and just really the quality of our response. Wildfires, specifically when they're close to urban areas, they cease to be wildfires and become urban conflagrations very quickly. It is important for us to recognize that we're dealing with a much more complex hazard today than we ever were before. As we continue to move into the wild and urban interface, we want to live in these wonderful and beautiful places. It's a wonderful place to put our home, but it comes with a significant price tag. And we need to be mindful of that as we protect our communities, that we leverage the tools and technologies that give us the best chance possible of protecting them. Next slide.
Perfect. Thank you, Ken. So from this point on, I'm going to give a brief backstory about Genesis, give you some information, as well as talk about a few of our solutions and that could potentially help in these type of situations. So currently, Genesis protects over 50 million citizens. And this is pretty impressive considering that this company's been around for over 40 years, but we started out mostly as a hardware company. And really, from 2018 on, you can see the rapid adoption of of communities trusting us and ensuring that this methodology makes sense for them to protect their citizens. So you can kind of see from 2019 when we really started adding the protective communication suite to the hardware portion of our company, there's been a really big adoption, and you can kind of see it on the little chart right there. And then a brief synopsis of the entire Genesis Protect platform. We have our Connect platform, which is a collaboration tool. It's CGIS HIPAA FOIA compliant. You're allowed to have an unlimited number of guests. So when you're having your first responders are kind of communicating, maybe talking to different agencies that are helping out, CERT teams, whatnot, you can invite them, put them in certain channels. Once that event's over, lock things up, nothing gets deleted, everything is compliant. If you get a FOIA request, it's easy to do, everything stays off device. We have our EVAC platform, which is our real-time zone-based planning, evacuation management, common operating picture, and much, much more. This is that tool that you're going to use to pre-plan for all your events and use in the middle of the events. We have our alert platform, which is our mass alerting tool. All the modalities: voice, text, email, social media, digital signage, iPaws, etc. So a very powerful tool. Obviously integrates with the EVAC platform as well as the other platforms. And then lastly, acoustics, where the company actually got started doing long-range acoustic devices, but instead of like a siren or whatnot, these are speakers that whatever comes out of your mass notification system can come out of these speakers. So they're not single-use devices, not just a tone for a tsunami or for a tornado or whatnot. whatever message you need to get out, whether it's like, shelter indoors, severe weather, what have you. You can trigger these, and we have the best clarity in the industry. So whether you're right next to it or a little bit away, you'll have full understanding of what the message is. So diving into our evac platform. So this actually started out as evacuation management for wildfires. It has now been evolved into an all-hazard tool, but when it was first incepted, that was the main point. We're based in San Diego, so wildfires are definitely close to home. So this is that tool. And it's kind of been talked about a little bit based on zones and whatnot. This is that common operating picture. So everybody working the event, from the officer on the ground, the EOC, dispatch, everyone who's involved is going to see all the same information, be able to, see the affected people, critical facilities, see the pre-planned road closures, arrival points, any shared equipment, any, all of our tools are native Esri. So any like pipeline layers, tier 2 facilities, stuff like that is all going to be easily visible. There's also built-in simulation, so you can simulate fires, flood, dam inundation, traffic, and kind of, again, it's not always about wildfires. It's not always about flooding. Sometimes you just have a special event. You need to move people out of an area, and you want to figure out where the pain points are, so you can identify where to put a sworn officer or a barricade or what have you. We can help you make those decisions. Also, offline maps. So if, like in the Carolinas or in California right now, if the infrastructure goes down where sites where internet's not readily available, this tool can build offline plans that you can print out and give to your officers. So you can still kind of communicate over radio and say, hey, go to traffic control point 2, arrival point 2, shelter A, whatever it may be, and that officer is going to have all the information they need. So this also gives you the ability to get information out to your citizens. It's that like trusted portal that they can go to and get all that information. It could be freestanding. They can go to our Genesis Protect mobile app that the alert or evac can trigger. So it's like GPS based, or they could subscribe to areas. But also we can embed this on your website, so they're not going somewhere else. And then they're going to know, hey, something's happening. This is the agency I contact, or this is the shelter if I live here, and all those kind of things. And again, this is mostly focused on wildfires, but this is a tool. Any incident, hurricanes, flooding, the Super Bowl or whatever may have you. Like there's ways that this can help increase your efficiencies. And then our alert platform, which is a mass alerting tool. So it's again built off Esri. So it's polygons, list of people, all the modalities, multiple languages. So this way, all of your population, whether they're English speaking, Spanish speaking, etc., you'll have the ability to kind of get information out to them. Also with our enrollment portals and things like that, you'll have the ability to kind of gather information from your citizens and then kind of more custom tailor those alerts to them. So if they need more time during evacuation, or interested in flag football alerts, whatever it may be, you can kind of make those customizations in the system. So also, we're one of the approved iPOS vendors. So being able to send out the messages through the iPOS tool, and also our Genesis Protect mobile app, those are very like no opt-in, no work required from the citizens. So, and on this slide, it just kind of shows, because most people on this call know the current way, have done it. Something happens in the field, officer identifies it, and you kind of go through this whole process. And Ken mentioned this earlier during his portion. Everything's about becoming more and more efficient. Efficiencies in everything we do. And in first responders world, obviously those minutes saved save lives. Make things better for them. So that's what our solution does. Using evac combined with alert and connect, the whole suite of solutions that we have, you're going to identify an incident. It's going to go to dispatch. It's going to, the assessment, everything is going to happen. And this is going to turn hours to minutes. We actually have some of our California customers that have actually given us actual statistics that their previous process, like this flow right here, took an hour 15, and we were able to shorten that to 15 minutes. So very powerful because, you can do a lot with that extra hour. So, and that's all we're going to talk about Genesis today. But I do appreciate everyone making the time. I appreciate our speakers, Liz and Ken, for kind of giving us some stuff to think about. If anyone's looking for a personal demonstration or wants to have a conversation with us, you can scan the QR code or go to genesis.com/contact us, and we're happy to have a conversation, do an actual demo of some of our solutions, or just have a conversation to see how they can integrate with your current plans or maybe help them. So again, thank you all very much for your time, and enjoy the rest of your day.